Up, up, up. And welcome to Vintage Garage. We have a real treat this week. We're taking a field trip to the HSR Savannah Historics at Roebling Road. It's a 3-day event with practice on Friday, qualifying races on Saturday, and feature races on Sunday. We plan to get some good in-car video, interviews with some of the other drivers, and a lot of scenes from around the paddock. Our trip begins as we leave Rockville for the trip to Georgia Wednesday afternoon. Hope you enjoy the show. We left Rockville about 2 in the afternoon on Wednesday. First thing we do is put on the theme music to Vintage Garage. We'll leave it on for the whole trip. The next morning we're crossing the Santee Cooper Lakes in central South Carolina. We always look for the big picture of the striped bass. This was one of the first lakes that had a successful landlocked striped bass breeding program. We're now heading west on Route 80 through the town of Pooler, Georgia, and we're only about 2 miles from the track. As we pull up to the front gate of the track, we see the registration building on the right. That's our first stop. At the registration booth, Holly Ricketson processed us in and gave us our credentials for the weekend.
There you go. There's your text sheets.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
You did.
We can't remember when registration was any smoother or faster than that. We really appreciate the great job Holly's doing. We have to wait now outside the track because it's Thursday test day and cars are using the track for test sessions. When the test session ended, we were able to cross the track and begin unloading. We arrived around noon on Thursday without any trouble. We had a nice safe tow down from Maryland, and we've got a nice spot here in the paddock. We're set up against the rail right near the front straightaway, and we've got a good angle on the sun, so we have a nice shady spot under our canopy. This is the tech building at Roebling Road. We brought the Titan down here for tech inspection. Let's go over and have a look and watch the tech inspectors work. Well, we're up at the tech shed now, and Sandy Collins is getting ready to tech the car. She does a great inspection. A lot of different kind of cars. Has to know a little bit about all the different kind of cars. After tech inspection, we parked the Titan under the canopy of the A-van. We're all set for tomorrow. It's Friday morning at Savannah, and the Vintage Garage rig is all set up, and the car is ready to go out for its first test session. It's a beautiful day. It's a little fog in the air, but it's burning off quickly, and we think it's going to be another hot day. We're now up at the Friday morning drivers meeting, where Howard Turner is giving instructions to the drivers.
If you make a mistake there, you can get into serious trouble.
We always check our tire pressures before we go out on the track, And we found this little 12-volt air compressor to be a lot handier than carrying around a big air tank. Before we go on track for our Friday morning session, let's look at a track map of Roebling Road to get our bearings. After that, we'll suit up, get in the car, drive up to the false grid, and video a hot lap at Roebling Road. Our hot lap at Roebling Road begins as we start down the front straightaway. We cross the start-finish line. The starter stand is immediately on our left. This straightaway is essentially flat. We accelerate the whole way down the straightaway and enter the braking zone to turn 1. Turn 1 and 2 is a combination turn that makes a 180-degree turn to the right. We take it as two parts. We let the car drift out to the outer part in the center of the turn and then bring the car back in to apex late at turn 2. We accelerate to turn 3 and shift to high gear right before turn 3. A 90-degree left-hander. We can usually make up track position by taking turn 3 flat out and braking hard for turn 4. Turn 4 is just slightly less than a 180-degree turn to the right. Turn 5 is also sort of a two-part turn. It tightens up on exit, and you have to be very careful not to run off the road on the exit. Then there's a short downhill chute that leads to turn 6 and 7. Turn 6 and 7 can be taken as one continuous long 180-degree turn to the right. As you exit turn 7, you start up a short chute, and turn 8 is a flag station at the top of the hill. That leads you to turn 9, a flat-out right-hander. That leads to turn 10, a fast right-hander that brings you out onto the pit straight. If you exit turn 10 wide and end up in the grass, you want to be careful to keep the car on the grass and just let it slow to a stop. That brings us back to the start-finish line where our hot lap will end. We moved the I/O port camera mount from the Lola T492 over to the Titan Mark 6. We mounted it here on the side of the roll bar where it's at the height of the eyes of the driver. Our hot lap at Roebling Road begins as we start down the front straightaway. We cross the start-finish line. The starter stand is immediately on our left. This straightaway is essentially flat. We accelerate the whole way down the straightaway and enter the braking zone to turn 1. Turn 1 and 2 is a combination turn that makes a 180-degree turn to the right. We take it as two parts. We let the car drift out to the outer part in the center of the turn and then bring the car back in to apex late at turn 2. We accelerate to turn 3 and shift to high gear right before turn 3. A 90-degree left-hander. We can usually make up track position by taking turn 3 flat out and braking hard for turn 4. Turn 4 is just slightly less than a 180-degree turn to the right. Turn 5 is also sort of a two-part turn. It tightens up on exit, and you have to be very careful not to run off the road on the exit. Then there's a short downhill chute that leads to turn 6 and 7. Turn 6 and 7 can be taken as one continuous long 180-degree turn to the right. As you exit turn 7, you start up a short chute, and turn 8 is a flag station at the top of the hill. That leads you to turn 9, a flat-out right-hander. That leads to turn 10, a fast right-hander that brings you out onto the pit straight. If you exit turn 10 wide and end up in the grass, you want to be careful to keep the car on the grass and just let it slow to a stop. That brings us back to the start-finish line where our hot lap will end. We're now up on the false grid for the start of the Friday afternoon Group 3 practice session. As soon as the grid clears, we'll run over to turn 5 and video the action. Here's the tire truck of Bob Woodman Tires. They sell Hoosier tires, Pirellis, and also Goodyears. Got a lot of tires here today, and they're mountain tires for all the racers. This is the Safe Quip trailer, and they sell all kinds of supplies for racers. We've come over to buy a pair of Nomex socks. Amos Smith is parked next to us in the paddock. Let's walk over and ask him about his car.
My car is a 1983 Royale RP39. It was made in England. It ran in the British Formula Ford 2000 Championship Series, and the car's driver was Anthony Reid, who now drives in the British Touring Car Championship, and also driving this year with MG Rover in the Le Mans race. At the front of the car, this car features a pull rod front suspension, which is rather unique. It's rather kind of the last of a series of that type of suspension. I bought the car in 1991 and done some regional racing, SCCA, with it, and recently been doing vintage historic with it.
Parked near Amos Smith is Brian Johnson.
This is the Federal Engineering Championship car. It was made by Wally Muskowski. I'd like to show you something on the motor here. This is an Offenhauser 255 cubic inch, 4-cylinder twin overhead cams with fuel injection here, the way it ran at Indy, and runs off a Magneto, made by Joe Hunt out of California. The engine would have produced about 450 horsepower back in the 60s. It's been, compression's been cut slightly, so it now produces about 360 horsepower. It's been restored back to the way it looked in 1964 with all the proper stickers on it.
It's Friday night at Savannah now, and the only serious racers are Zotz Racing, putting the finishing touches here on a 914. I predict these guys are going to win the 914 race. They're the only serious ones here. It's Saturday morning at Savannah. We just got back from the drivers' meeting. We have our qualifying session this morning at 10:10. The weather forecast is for rain today, and we're hoping that the rain holds off until after our qualifying session. We have a qualifying race this afternoon, and we're looking forward to the day. Out behind the A-van, we find Julie Smith giving Einstein a show trim, while Pam Smith holds the lead in comfort zone. Julie raises show dogs in Tennessee and is a professional groomer. Einstein's never looked so good. Parked next to us in the paddock is Gary Burdett. He's from Rockville, Maryland. He's got a Porsche 914-6. He's entered in the all Porsche 914 race this weekend. We see he's tightening up the lug nuts on the car. Let's go over and have a talk with him, learn a little bit about the car.
This is a 1972 Porsche 914-6. It was found in the coalfields of West Virginia. From there I restored it to make it look like a GT. The engine is a 2-liter. This is a fuel systems fuel bladder. It protects you in case of crashes. It has dual pickups, 1, 2, and a return. I've got a positive flow where the fuel is continuously flowing around. I've got 2 competition Mallory fuel pumps sitting in the back, and has a custom-made support up here in order to encase the fuel cell. What we have here are the triple 46 Webers with their air cleaners, K&N filters for high flow. We have the Nology hot wires for the spark plug wires, and in this area we've installed the factory 914-6 oiling system. This is where the oil is kept, approximately 11 quarts of oil.
My name is Robert Hibden, and this is a Lotus 23. One of the reasons why this car was such a success was because of its aerodynamics and the fact that it weighs a little over 900 pounds. We'll take a moment and raise the bonnet and show you exactly how it's built. The tubular frame is very rigid. Lotus was really big into formula cars in the early 60s. They decided to take their famous Lotus 22 and stretch it out. We get almost 200 horsepower out of this 1962 Ford bottom end. It's attached to a Hewland gearbox with 5 gears, and this car will do just a little over 150 miles an hour down the straightaway. Here's the Roebling Road.
We're now over at turn 3 to watch the Saturday Group 4 and 6 qualifying session, and the action is hot. Well, we're now over at the timing and scoring trailer, and here's Baird and Kim at the table. The two of them are timing the entire session. It's pretty impressive. Last time we were here, this entire bench was full of people. These two do a great job. We're now at the flag station at turn 6, and Art Corbin of the Buccaneer Region SCCA is running the blue flag and looking back up toward turn 5. Billy Adams from the Central Florida Region SCCA is covering turn 6 and 7. Flagging this weekend has been first rate. We're back over at turn 5 for the Saturday afternoon Group 6 and 7 qualifying race, and it started to rain. The rain is picking up and it's getting quite heavy. A great meal for all the drivers and crews was provided Saturday night, and it was much appreciated. It's now Sunday morning at Savannah. It's feature day. A cold front came through overnight with some wind and some rain, but all in all not too bad. Today should be bright and sunny, very small chance of rain, and it should be a perfect day for the feature races. The Titan Mark 6 is all ready to go. Our feature race is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're now up on the false grid for the Sunday morning Rolex Classic GT and Historic Endurance Challenge. This is an hour-and-a-half endurance race. We've now moved over to turn 3 to watch the endurance race, and it's hard to tell it's an endurance race. The action is just as fierce as though it was a 5-lap sprint race. After the race, there was an hour of quiet time, and it gave us a chance to go and interview 2 more drivers. The first is Lee Talbot. He has a beautiful red Ginetta G4.
The car itself is made with a steel space frame, and then the body is fiberglass. So it's extremely light. The whole thing only weighs just a little over 1,000 pounds. The engine is a Ford 4-cylinder, and it's what is known as a cross-flow because the Webers are here. The gas that comes into the engine comes from this side, and then on the other side is the exhaust going out. So it's called a cross-flow engine, and this allows a great deal more efficiency, and therefore you get a great deal more power. An AccuSump's something that most cars don't have. It's pretty well limited to race cars. Normally, when you start the engine of a car, the first few times the engine turns over, there's no oil there, because the oil is down at the bottom. The pump hasn't had a chance to push it through. So that you get more wear when you turn on the engine than you get all the rest of the time you're driving a car. You flip a switch here when you want to start the car. It pressurizes, it pushes the oil into the system so that the whole engine is full of oil, and then you start the engine and there's no wear. Just the last few months, the Ginetta factory in England has started to produce a new Ginetta, which is essentially the same car. It's got the same beautiful, sensuous lines, but it's a car for the street. And they're going to start to be introduced here as of next week. In fact, we're going over to Atlanta right after this race to pick up the first one. And I'm going to be a dealer for them because I think this car is such a terrific car. It's so beautiful, and the performance is so fantastic that I just can't think of a better sports car for somebody to have.
Paddock right behind Lee Talbot, we find Alba Horick, owner of the Cheetah Roadster.
This is a 1963 Cheetah. It's known as the Crow Sow Special. It's easily recognizable in that it's the only roadster Cheetah. The way that happened was during the June sprints in 1964. The original driver, Ralph Salyer, had heat prostration during qualifying, and they had to remove him from the car, at which time they cut the roof off. So all the other Cheetahs that you'll see will be coupes. There are 5 legitimate racing coupes, and this the only roadster. It has 50-50 weight distribution, which puts the engine way far back in the chassis, and it's coupled to the transmission, which is directly coupled to the rear end. The car never did really perform all that well. It was blindingly fast, being clocked at 187 miles an hour on the straight at Road America. It won significant races. This is the winningest Cheetah of all. It won the June sprints in 64 and 65 and several other races, mostly due to the bravery of the original driver, Ralph Salyer. The name Crow Sal comes from the combination of Ralph Salyer, the driver and owner, and Gene Crow, the crew member who maintained the car.
We're now up at the Falls Grid for the start of the all Porsche 914 race. This is one of the highlights of the weekend. Our feature race immediately follows this race, so we'll have to hurry to get back to our paddock area and get ready for the race. We've set our video camera on the pit wall right at the start-finish line, and this is the pace lap of the all Porsche 914 race. The cars come across the line, led by the Brumos Porsche pace car. We left our camera on the pit wall, and here's the start of the Porsche 914 race. We now have to run back to our paddock area, get in the car, and get ready for our feature race. We're now moving up to the Falls Grid for our feature race, the combined race for Group 8 and Group 2 cars. This race will be a mix of open and closed wheel cars, and we've qualified third on the grid. Tom Turner from Jacksonville, Florida is starting on the pole in the 79 Van Diemen Formula Ford, and Amos Smith from Signal Mountain, Tennessee is starting outside pole in the 83 Royale RP39 Formula Ford. Both of these guys are faster than we are, and we're faster than the cars behind us, so it might not be much of a race. But we'll have a lot of fun anyways. As we follow the Brumos Porsche pace car into turn 9, we concentrate on having the car in the right gear. With all the cars behind us, we don't want to mess up the start. As we start into turn 10, the pace car pulls off and into the pits. We'll probably have a start this time. Near the end of the race, we're still running in third place, well behind the second place car and well ahead of the fourth place car. And that's the way the race ended. We started third and finished third. The car ran great and we had a lot of fun. After the race, it's time to break camp, load all our tools and gear, and load the Titan Mark 6 into the A-van. We take down the canopy, say goodbye to all our friends, and head for home. That's it for this week at Vintage Garage. Hope you enjoyed the trip to Roebling Road. I know we did. Next week we'll finish up the restoration of the Royale RP2. We'll apply the graphics to the car and install a fuel cell. After that we'll silkscreen up a big batch of t-shirts to wear around the shop and at the races. So until next week, glad you were here. Keep the shiny side up. We'll see you in a week. If you'd like more information about any of the projects we've worked on today, please visit our website at www.vintagegarage.com. There's a link to our email address on the website. Please email us. We'd like to hear from you. Till next time, keep the shiny side up. Thanks for coming. See you next week.